LSU beats Western Kentucky 13-10 in one of the ugliest offensive performances we will ever see. Regrettably, we'll talk about it. Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe as always. One of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. And thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the world. LSU beats Western Kentucky in the home finale for 2025. 13-10 was the final, and the game was just as ugly as that final score would suggest. LSU could not get its anemic offense going yet again against a Conference USA school. We're going to go through the game. We're going to go through the day that Michael Van Buren had, because quite honestly, that's probably the biggest thing that we all collectively need to learn about LSU in these 3 games that Van Buren is likely to start, provided he starts next week against Oklahoma, is if this guy is possibly your starter for next year. And after Saturday night, the answer should be a resounding no, but we'll get to that. Instead, what I want to start with are 2 things that are overtly positive. And I'm not the sunshine pumper here. You all know that. If something's bad, I'm going to say it. If it's good, I'm going to say it. But I think in a lost season, where it started with so much expectation and has now gotten to a point where, I was having this conversation on the field with Harrison Valentine, who works for LSU and I've known for a lot of years. We're standing on the field as the final minutes were ticking off the clock Saturday night, and we were talking about, if you could go back to Clemson when LSU was preseason top 10 and they're beating Clemson on the road 17-10, and walking off the field that night, if you could have told anybody who loves, covers, follows, works for LSU, hey, by the time you get to the end of November, this is your reality. LSU is going to be a team that can't move the football, and they're playing a meaningless game against Western Kentucky where they're struggling to score 13 points. Nobody would have believed it. So in a season that's lost, where Brian Kelly's been fired, you're going to hire a new coach, and all the negativity, if you can find silver linings, if you can find individual moments that are really cool and memorable, I want to highlight those, which is why I want to start with West, Whit, and Zach Weeks all seeing the field for the first time. Look, LSU's been playing football since 1893. You're talking about more than 130 years they've been playing football at LSU. If you can do something that has not been done in 130 years of football, that's notable. It's actually astonishing. And on Saturday night, amid this miserable football game, in a lost season against a Conference USA squad, West, Whit, and Zach Weeks all saw the field simultaneously, becoming the first trio of brothers ever to play on the field at LSU for the first time. That's amazing. Together, that's amazing. We've seen 3 brothers on the same team before. The Taylors, Brandon, Curtis, Jiren Taylor, were all on the team together, but they were never on the field at the same time. So West Weeks on his senior night, Whit Weeks, who hasn't played since the South Carolina game, came back for 2 series in the first half just to be on the field with his brothers. And Zach Weeks, who of course should be a high school senior, who reclassified for this opportunity to be on the field, was just awesome. Remember, West also could have finished his career a season ago, but he battled an injury and decided in November to sit when he could have played so he could preserve his red shirt to come back for this opportunity. In an era of individualized college football players who are more concerned with the portal and the NIL and rev share, and I'm okay with that, these guys are a throwback. These are guys who said, you know what actually matters is the opportunity for the three of us to play together on the same team. And it was so cool to see, and congrats to them. They're, I guess, the answer to a trivia question. But, West Weeks didn't graduate last year, or didn't use up all of his eligibility so he could come back for this. Whit Weeks, who still is not right. By the way, after he played, went into the locker room, changed back into street clothes, and put a boot back on his foot. It was on the sideline in a boot for the rest of the game. And then Zach should be in his high school senior season. Gave that up to come here for this. So listen, I get it. That game was hideous. It was 13-10. Nobody's walking out of there with any type of good feeling. It was an empty stadium, and it was so tough to watch. But we would be missing the point if we didn't point out the biggest thing from this game was that something happened at an LSU football game that has not happened in 130 years. And that's why it was important to start with that. And I also want to give a hat tip to Blake Baker's defense, which was awesome. Western Kentucky got the ball to start the game. They went 9 plays, 57 yards, 3:17 off the clock, and LSU held them to a field goal. After that, the defense did not allow another point. The only points that Western Kentucky got the rest of the game was their scoop and score with 1 minute and 5 seconds to go in the ball game when Harlan Berry fumbled, the 71-yard fumble return for a touchdown to make it 13-10. On the day, you're talking about a Western Kentucky team that put up 152 yards of total offense. Let me say that again slowly. Western Kentucky put up 152 yards of total offense. LSU had 2 interceptions in the ball game as well, with DJ Pickett coming up with a pick, PJ Woodland coming up with an interception. The Tiger defense was awesome in this game, and I was so happy to see it. DJ Pickett had a sack. West Weeks had a sack. You dominated time of possession, 35-54 to 24-06, mostly because they couldn't stay on the field because your defense was awesome. Your defense held them to 4 of 15 on third down. They were 0 for 3 on fourth down. And in 2 red zone chances, they were just 1 for 2 as one of the fourth down attempts wasn't a goal-to-go situation where LSU stuffed them. So it was a great defensive performance from that side of the ball, which has had to carry a lot of the load. And this was a day where you didn't have Mansour Delane as he was dealing with an abdominal issue. And obviously that's a guy with a future and a draft future and didn't want to risk it against Western Kentucky. And I don't blame him. A day where, Whit Weeks only gave you a couple of series in the first half, but got out there for you. I mean, one of the biggest plays on a fourth down stop was Jakeem Jackson, who's been seldom used this year, came up with a big stop for you in the second quarter on a 4th and 1 where they threw a completed ball and he was right there to make the tackle. So it was a day where Harold Perkins got injured with a hip pointer, went back into the game. AJ Halsey looked like he was injured, went back into the game. All of these guys that could have packed it in a lost season, but they continue to play hard and had a dominant performance. So congrats to the LSU defense and congrats to the Weeks brothers for making some history on Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. Okay, I'll run through game flow and talk about the things that were not so good, which was the offense and Michael Van Buren. We'll do that as we continue. Locked on LSU, your team every day. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get it on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. Honestly, it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Yes, there were some positive moments. The defense and the Weeks brothers all playing at the same time. Overwhelmingly, though, this game with LSU and Western Kentucky is defined by one of the worst offenses in the history of LSU football, continuing to illustrate why it is one of the worst offenses in the history of LSU football. Hat tip to Wilson Alexander and Scott Rabelais at The Advocate. Rab did the research during the game. Wilson tweeted it. But since 1978, when the Division I split came, if LSU fails to score 25 points against Oklahoma, this would be the first time in 50 years, since 1978, that LSU has failed to score 25 points against an FBS opponent. And Oklahoma is maybe the best defense LSU will face all year. And you have to go to Norman on a day where Oklahoma needs to win to punch its playoff ticket. Oh, it's going to be a real challenge for the LSU offense. When you look at how this game played out, it tells the story. Western Kentucky got the ball, 9 plays, 57 yards, 317, went and scored a touchdown. A field goal. LSU goes 3-and-out punts. Western Kentucky, they got up a couple first downs, but then Jack Piper with a big sack, they punt. Okay. LSU's got the ball, 3-and-out punt. Western Kentucky would punt. LSU would punt. LSU would throw an interception. Michael Van Buren threw the interception on the first drive of the second quarter. Western Kentucky, this was when I think back now, a play that in the moment we all went, ooh, but you forgot about as the game wore on. What proved to be a massively consequential play in this ball game. Western Kentucky's first possession of the second quarter after Michael Van Buren's interception. Western Kentucky's winning 3-0. Van Buren throws a pick. Western Kentucky starts at the 50. They end up getting a 1st and goal at the 6. After an incomplete pass on 2nd and goal from the 6, they run a trick play where the running back throws the ball to the quarterback, who is wide open in the end zone and drops the football. LSU would then have forced 2 more incomplete passes, and Western Kentucky would stall, getting no points there. Oh my goodness. In a game that ended 13-10, Western Kentucky dropped a touchdown pass and got no points on that drive. Even a field goal there, you would have been tied after the fumble. Now, we can't assume all else is equal, but that's one of those plays that early in the second quarter, you're not thinking is going to be consequential because we're all expecting LSU is going to pull away. But my goodness, did that end up being massive and unforced error there by Western Kentucky. So LSU takes over at their own 4. Tigers would end up going forward on a 4th down from the 42-yard line, incomplete. This would start 3 consecutive possessions where Western Kentucky went for it, didn't get it. LSU went forward on 4th and 4, didn't get it. On the next possession, Western Kentucky goes forward on 4th and 1 from the 38. Beautiful play by Jakeem Jackson to make the stop right at the catch. Didn't get it. Tigers would get the ball, and they would finally, thanks to a PI that put the ball down at the 11-yard line, and they converted a 4th and 1 on the shovel pass to Trades. Nice improvisational play by Van Buren to elude pressure to the left, shovel pass, Trades, who would get enough for the first down. But all that said, you finally get in the end zone. It's 7-3. LSU's winning, and then they would trade punts for the remainder of the first half. And even though the Tigers had an opportunity with 1:14 to play, and a 39-yard Xavier Thomas punt return taking over the Western Kentucky 45, the Tigers couldn't get points because they're a terrible offense. You want to look at the first half lowlights. You had a PI on PJ Woodland. Van Buren threw an interception. You had a defensive holding on Tylen Singleton, a false start on DJ Chester, who took over for Braylon Moore. You went forward on a 4th and 4 incomplete pass. You had a defensive offside against Bernard Gooden. Mansour Delane didn't start. Braylon Moore was hurt. Ori Williams was hurt. The first half was atrocious. You were lucky to go into halftime leading that football game 7-3, and you got the ball to start the second half, and you promptly punted. This was the second half. LSU punt, Western Kentucky punt, LSU punt, Western Kentucky interception by DJ Pickett. LSU would kick an 18-yard field goal, and this was indicative, by the way. It was the right decision because in a 7-3 ball game, kicking the field goal puts you up a full touchdown right there. But you had a goal-to-go situation from the 4-yard line. Michael Van Buren ran it around right end, got walloped near the goal line, fumbled. Thankfully, he was down. Otherwise, that would have been a touchback, and Western Kentucky would have gotten the ball. On second down, incomplete pass to Trey'Dez Green. On third down, Michael Van Buren fumbled a shotgun snap, and the Tigers would end up kicking a field goal from the 1-yard line. Y'all, you kicked an 18-yard field goal against a Conference USA team. You have SEC scholarship linemen. You have a 5-star number 1 running back in the country. You had a 4th and goal from the 1-yard line against a Conference USA team. And you kicked a field goal from the 1-yard line. Now, made it a 7-point game. And all the points in that situation absolutely matter. Look at the final score. You won 13-10. So, yeah, in a situation where they went forward on a 4th and goal, didn't get it, you had a 4th and goal from the 1, kicked the field goal, 6-point swing. There's the difference in the ball game for you. So, yeah, I guess it's the right decision because you won the game, but it's also an illustration of how atrocious you are offensively. I mean, Woodland would get an interception, you'd punt. They would go 3 and out and punt. You'd kick a 29-yard field goal to go up 13-3, and then it was a whole bunch of punts after that until a scoop and score. And then LSU ultimately got the onside kick and were able to kneel it out. It was awful. It was an awful football game. LSU was 3 of 16 on 3rd down, 1 of 3 on 4th down. You fumbled twice in the ball game. You lost one of them. You threw an interception. You committed 9 penalties for 69 yards. This was an atrocious game. And Michael Van Buren threw the ball 42 times in this game. The only game all season where LSU has attempted more passes than Michael Van Buren did on Saturday against Western Kentucky was when LSU threw 43 passes against Southeastern Louisiana. Michael Van Buren was 25 of 42 for 202 yards, a touchdown and an interception. 25 of 42 for 202. You know, I'm not going to sit here and blame Michael Van Buren for this anemic offensive performance. What I'm going to do is say now, with this context, the same thing I said all year when a lot of you were bagging on Garrett Nussmeier. My point then is the same point now. Garrett Nussmeier was part of the problem, but he wasn't the problem. The problem is your offense is awful. Your scheme is awful. Your play calling is awful. Your quarterback play has been bad. Your offensive line play has been atrocious. Your running backs, your receivers dropping passes. The entire operation has been bad. That is objectively true. You are a 21.5-point favorite in this game. You scored 13 points. Nothing comes easily for this LSU offense. And you see it manifest week after week. The inability to put together drives, the inability to finish drives. And the point being, there was a lot of people who thought Garrett Nussmeier was the problem. And when you inserted Michael Van Buren, it was going to be fixed. Very clearly, that's not the case. Michael Van Buren has now had 2 opportunities to start against Arkansas, which is the worst defense in the SEC. Gave up 52 today, by the way, to Texas. Arkansas, he scored 23 points. Conference USA, Western Kentucky, you scored 13. The problem is, as I've said all year long, the central key culprit is your offensive line. An offensive line that can't pass protect. So everything is a horizontal passing game designed to get the ball out quickly and can't run block, which is why you're just unable to run unless if you commit to it, which LSU largely hasn't been willing to commit. This was a game you were playing against Western Kentucky, which is 108th in the country in run defense. 108th in the country in run defense. You had a goal-to-go situation at the 1 and you kicked the field goal. This is a team that on this game for LSU ran it 37 times for 126 yards. It's just not good in any way that you slice it offensively. And Van Buren, if you're blaming Nussmeier for the fact that LSU was unable to score 25 points, then you need to blame Van Buren too, because you played 2 awful teams defensively and you were unable to move the football or score in 2 home games against Arkansas and Western Kentucky. I'm not putting all the blame at Van Buren's feet, but what I will say about Van Buren is what I have said since fall camp. He is an inaccurate quarterback. The good news for Van Buren is you can work on that. You can get better at that. But all of our camp reports, that's what I told you throughout camp. So why would you be surprised today when Van Buren goes 25 of 42 with an interception? It's what he is. I think he has a high ceiling. I think he does some things athletically that are good. But by and large, this is a guy that's not an SEC caliber starting quarterback today. So that means whoever the next coach is, it's Lane Kiffin or whomever it may be, the first thing they got to do is figure out quarterback position. And I don't know that that guy's on the roster because Colin Hurley's taking a leave and who knows what's going to happen with him in his personal situation. And then you've got this here with Michael Van Buren where I don't know how you look at him with a degree of confidence to say, yep, that's our guy who's going to really find the unlock offensively. It feels like if it is Lane Kiffin, maybe he brings someone from Ole Miss, maybe Austin Simmons from Ole Miss follows him, or maybe it's just you go into the portal and find the next Trinidad Chambliss along those lines. But what you have right now clearly is not the answer, and that was evident on Saturday night again. Tigers get to go play in Norman against Oklahoma for the final game of the regular season, and as good a defense as they are, I'm really hoping that Garrett Nussmeier accelerates his healing this week and is able to play next week against Oklahoma. I don't know that I believe that, but what I do believe is if you're looking at a situation where you're not going to have Garrett Nussmeier available against Oklahoma, and you're going to have to go against that defense with Van Buren under center, man, I'm not sure I'm confident in LSU's ability to move the football at all, let alone score. So it's an interesting opportunity for the next coach to evaluate Michael Van Buren with multiple starts. But if you're thinking you have any opportunity whatsoever to go to Norman and win that football game, it's not likely to happen with Van Buren under center. All right. That'll do it for us here on today's episode of Locked on LSU. The Tigers win 13-10, but they continue to illustrate why this is an awful offensive season, an offensive offensive season. But as the Tigers move throughout this week, getting ready for the regular season finale against Oklahoma, and as Kiffin Watch rolls on, we'll certainly be here for Locked on LSU. Thanks so much for making this your first listen. Again, if you're on podcast, please subscribe. If you're on YouTube, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. And of course, let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked on LSU. It's your team every day.